process and a marketing budget plan, and you get a box here that is where management happens, and then you have sales management after there, right? So, where do you fit in this picture? You fit right about here, right? We're cattle. We're treated like cattle in these things. Even, cattle, go forage for your own food and get it in the thing before we kill you. That's what the lady, the checkout is. So the problem is this persistent belief that the best customer is a captive one. It's really ironic. They want to capture us, and at the same time, well, you're responsible for your own stuff as long as you're within our weird little system here. So we actually think the best captor wins. I'm a free market guy. I like business, but when I read the Wall Street Journal's editorial page, they talk about things like Verizon and AT&T as if this is the free market. It's not. It's a bunch of captors. It's a bunch of silos. So we actually think the best captor wins. And that we is all of us, is not just the sellers. So in thinking that we're, free market is your choice of captor, is ironic considering the fact that the net is now in the middle of everything. This art, by the way, comes from Hugh McLeod, who has a great blog called Gaping Void, and he has these wonderful cartoons. Just look up Gaping Void. So props to him. I used to draw the internet, and he actually drew that thing in the middle, which is pretty good. So every captor is also this silo for storing customer data. And so there are these silos, we call them silos, and the free market then becomes your choice of data captor. And this is a system. It's broken, but it is a system. And so the hospitality market, which some of us travel to get here, including myself, looks like this. You have your choice of all these different things. They all have their own way of keeping track of you and what you've done, right? You can't take the data from one and bring it to the other. You can't get some kind of coherence out of this for your own sake. The best you can do is carry these little cards around with you. So all your data for each and from each is captive within each of these things. And the social systems we talk about now, like social is the big hot word right now, right? They're all silos too. Your Twitter and Facebook, you might be able to plumb them together in some way, but they're not open systems. The data is not necessarily yours. It lives in their cloud. But we've broken out of silos before, so here's one example. And again, props to the people in the front row here. These were, I love this. I like telling this story because I met Craig and Judith in part because I was amazed at what was going on in the mid-'80s when one day we're all talking about, the magazines are thick with this, which is best, a star or a ring or a bus topology? Which is the best cabling? Is it fat Ethernet or thin Ethernet? Or is it this kind of twisted pair? Or is it coax or IBM's TwinAx? IBM had like 2 different kind of special cabling. You had to tear the ceilings down and put the new cabling in. And everybody, it was your choice of silos, right? And then Novell and the network operating system blew that up in the 80s. They said, well, what do you need? You need to get to a file. We'll help you do that. You need to get print. We'll help you do that. You need to manage the system. We'll help you do that. And all of a sudden, nobody was talking about bus or star or ring topologies anymore. So, and listen, these are the things the net blew up in the 90s. There was a time, I once spent like over $3,000 a year with CompuServe to do research and travel in various parts of the world. They were good for that, but I couldn't send an email from CompuServe to AOL. I had to have a separate AOL account. I had to have a separate Well account. I had to have separate accounts with every different bulletin board system I was involved with. Well, the net took care of that. The net obviated that. We didn't need to deal with that anymore. But we're still in the past. We're still stuck in this place where we're talking about social whatever, and we need to keep building out the net. The net is what changed this. The net, I think, is a development on the order of Gutenberg's movable type. It may even be the latest stage of that. And it's a process by which businesses, activities that were once the sole province of specialists of one kind or another become something any one of us can do. So, my point now is that the net is personal, it's not just social. We're talking social now. I'm going to tell you the next stage beyond social is actually personal, and we're not going to be able to do social right until we get personal down, and we don't have personal down yet. So how do we prove that a free customer is more valuable than a captive one? Because that's really the trick. Most businesses say, well, this is my data. I have this data, not the customer. It's very important data. I have this data alone. Never mind that, wait a minute, a lot of that data is wrong. It'd be easier to say if I wanted to change my address, I could do it once and tell everybody I have a relationship with rather than have to do it separately with all of these because the service has been outsourced. but how can we prove that I'm better free than I am captive? So I think, we've one solution is something we call vendor relationship management. And that's the reciprocal customer relationship management. It's how each of us manages relations with them, at least as well as they think they're relating to us. That's really the challenge here. That's where Kynetx fits in. That's where a lot of other things fit in that we're only beginning to hear about. So VRM is the reciprocal of CRM. It's not VRM versus CRM, it's actually VRM plus CRM. We want to help CRM systems become more appropriate, be able to handle more data in better ways, because there'll be a data correction facility on the customer side and a data enrichment facility on the customer side, and ways that money can flow that can't right now because there's all kinds of forms of demand that are not being heard because the customer is limited in what they can say by the CRM systems that don't want to hear any more than the few data types that they're caring about right now. So it'll work together with CRM or without it. Either way, the sellers rather, will have to deal for real with the powered customers. So a couple of things here. One is with VRM, the individual is a point of integration for their own data and a point of origination, point of integration of their own data and a point of origination about what gets done with it. In other words, whether the data lives with us or it lives in a data store that's in a cloud somewhere, it's our data in the sense that we control it. It's our transaction history, it's our relationships, it's the crumb trail that we leave behind that we're busy keeping track of. Whatever it is, we integrate it and then we make the decisions about what gets done with it. So for example, if you take the hotels and say, I'm a traveler. There are things I can tell all these guys that might be interesting to all of them, and they can compete for my business, and they can compete in better ways. So here's some of what we want VRM to do, and I'm not going to list all of the things that are going on now. Each of these is a development project that's going on. What I do at the Berkman Center at Harvard is basically run a clubhouse for a number of different development efforts. And I'm involved with some, I'm not as involved with others. I know about others and I hang out with them, like Kynetx, for example. So anyway, one of them is manage your own healthcare data. This is actually the biggest one, and this one is already underway. It's a tall order and very long term, especially in the US. But what's important about it is that no matter what your position is on whatever the current politics going on with healthcare, people are being killed every day because of bad data. My mother died of bad data. There's all kinds of, your data, your healthcare data, if you're more than 3 or 4 years old, is scattered through lots and lots of different systems. Most of it's on paper, a lot of it's in files, they don't get along with each other. This isn't going to be solved unless the patient is the point of integration for that data. The patient is the point of origination about what gets done with it. And there are a lot of people working on that already. Another is issue what we call a personal RFP to home markets on the fly. So this is a slide I actually put together for a talk I gave in Amsterdam when I needed a power converter. I'd like to send out a message saying I need a 220 to 110 power converter in Amsterdam on a Sunday afternoon without giving any more than the required information. In other words, I have so many euros to spend, who's going to come through? There are all kinds of demand right now. I have a demand for lenses. We were talking about this last night. I have a new camera. It takes different lenses than the old Canon did. I've got money I'm ready to spend today, here. If somebody will bring the products to me, I don't have to necessarily go out and look for them. I don't have time to do that. Well, there's lots of demand, what we call MLOT, money left on the table, because the demand is standing in the marketplace, but it has no way of getting from the demand side to the supply side, because all the suppliers are scattered out there, all trying to control their own channels of communication. So Scott Adams, how many people here read Dilbert, right? Like almost everybody, right? Well, I made a post a couple days ago about personal RFPs because he wrote something that sounded like, oh my gosh, that's like VRM. He calls it broadcast shopping. I'm broadcasting my shopping list, for example. And now we have a dialogue going with him on my blog because he wanted to patent an idea about it. It was really cool. So there's a zeitgeist going on here. There's a consciousness about what needs to be done.
So he wanted to lock you into his...
He wanted to lock me into his cartoons. I already am locked into his cartoons.
No, into his vision of broadcasting.
Yeah, right. Well, could be. Yeah, exactly, because he wanted to patent it. He failed at it too, by the way. Another is certain useful terms of service that are ours instead of theirs. So I showed that before. But why shouldn't we be able to say, you know what? I actually have terms of engagement that might be more generous than what your lawyers want. I mean, I'd like to be able to say, you know what, I'm not a terrorist. Can I go through the airport, please? You know, I'd like to be able to. I've proven that for many years. You know, like, we can just do it.